alum. His family is from Mexico, actually, but he was born in Los Angeles, and he's the middle child with two sisters. And he also has a one-eyed dog named Kobe, which I think is just so cool. What kind of dog is he, Andres?
I, it's funny. I get asked that question so many times, and I really don't know what kind of dog he is. He's a small little dog. But
Like a
I've
mutt of some kind.
yeah, like a mutt. But yeah, he's a small dog. I've had him basically since MVC.
Oh, that's so
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
So
Thank
he
you.
was, yeah, Andres was at NBC from fall 2014 to spring 2016 before transferring to UCLA, where he ended up getting his Bachelor of Science in Aerospace Engineering in June 2019, right before the pandemic. You lucky duck.
Yes.
Um, Andres is currently working at the Boeing company as a space and launch systems engineer. And for fun, he likes to play video games, play music, and enjoys trying new foods. So thank you so much for joining us today, Andres.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm glad. I'm very happy to be here, actually, and thank you for reaching out to me so I could be able to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. We're really excited to hear your story. So we're just going to jump right in. And my first question, or what I'm going to first ask you, is just to tell us a little bit more about your educational journey.
Okay. So I know I have some of the questions that you emailed me for, so I'm gonna kind of go through those more or less. Okay. So one of the questions is, why did I decide to attend MVC? A big reason is money. Well, the thing is, I didn't come from a very wealthy family. My family is actually, I come from a very low income family. Um, both of my both of my parents, they didn't even finish high school. They're from Mexico, but they didn't even finish high school. And so me being here in the US, kind of like I was kind of told like, oh, like, like if you go to school, then it can like really like help you get have a better life than what my parents had. And so MSc in particular was mostly because of money, because it was just really expensive to go to a 4-year university. And then I also applied to a lot of 4-year universities, and I didn't get in. So I was just like, okay, well, I'll do community college. Should be fine. Even though a lot of people told me that it wasn't a good idea because they thought that community college wasn't gonna like get me ahead in life, if that makes sense. And MVC was close to my home. It was only like 3 miles away from where I lived in Moreno Valley, so that was another thing too. It was really close to where I lived. Um, okay, so that's mostly the main reason why I went to MVC. So another question. Let's see. Did you have any mentors or strong influences at MVC? Um, I would say honestly, a lot of my teachers, like Mr. Bashina right there and the screen, and Fen Johnson. Hopefully, if I get to see her, we're definitely like kind of like influences for me, just because like the one subject I've always enjoyed in school is math, and so math was just kind of something that like I was just kind of like good at. I always enjoyed it, and so I just kind of kept on going. And part of the reason that I chose to do aerospace engineering as well was because originally I actually wanted to be a commercial pilot when I was in high school, but I didn't have the money to like attend like the flight lessons and things like that. So I decided to go to college, and I was just like, okay, well, I'm good at math and I like airplanes, so I'll do aerospace engineering. Is kind of the reason why I chose to do aerospace engineering. Um, Let's see. Next question. Were you part of any special programs at MVC? What is considered a special program?
Like if you were part of Puente or any kind of extracurricular clubs or anything like that?
Okay. I did do some extracurricular clubs. When I was actually in high school, I did a lot of community service, and so I kind of wanted to do something with community service. So I joined the Spanish club at MVC. I'm not sure if it's still there anymore, but that's kind of what I did was community service, and I also started my own club there when I was at Moreno Valley College. On the weekends, I like playing mariachi music, so I play mariachi on the weekends, and I started a mariachi club at Moreno Valley College, which is
Oh,
kind of
so cool.
yeah, so that's kind of something on the side is what I like doing as well. Like school's important too, but like also like, you know, kind of just like have fun, you know, like even at school, like with extracurricular activities is some things that I've done. But I think that mariachi was probably the biggest thing, like getting it started, trying to get people to learn mariachi music and even learn new instruments and things like that. And things like that, because I learned to play mariachi in high school and I just really enjoyed it and I wanted to do something in college as well. But what I was looking for wasn't at Moreno Valley College. I was like, you know what? I just had the idea of like creating a mariachi club. And that's what I did at Moreno Valley College as a extracurricular activity.
That's so cool. Yeah, I'm not sure if the club is still there. You gotta have people keep running it, but that is
Yeah,
really
that's true.
cool.
Yeah.
So the next question that I had for you, or that's part of that, is how many transfer institutions did you apply to?
I applied to a lot. I applied to about 7 schools, if I
Wow.
remember correctly. I applied to 3 Cal States. I believe they were Cal State Long Beach, San Diego State, and Cal Poly Pomona. And I applied to 4 UCs. I applied to UCLA, of course, UC San Diego, UC Riverside, and UC Irvine. And I applied to all the schools that I could with because like when you apply for transfer, when there's a fee associated with each application, but they do give waivers to students of low income. So I basically used up to the waivers maximum amount of schools I was able to apply to. So that's some like a suggestion, you know, like if for whoever else is gonna apply to for transfer, then definitely use up what the waiver lets you apply to, however many schools you can. So yeah, so 7 schools, 3 Cal States, and 4 UCs is what I applied to.
So what
And
made you decide on UCLA?
honestly, the big thing about UCLA was kind of always just like uh, one thing was definitely like the name, like UCLA was just kind of the brand. I They were also giving me a lot of financial aid and scholarships to go to, so that was definitely another thing too. Like, you know, I have to be able to afford to go to the school. um, what else? Oh yeah, and I knew there was a mariachi there, like
Oh,
hands down. So that was definitely another thing I wanted to do as well. And I think the fourth thing was Los Angeles is honestly like considered as like aerospace like capital, just because there's so many like connections to aerospace in Los Angeles. And those are the main reasons why I wanted to go to UCLA.
I see. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So
Mhm.
tell us a little bit, what was the transition of going from MVC to UCLA like?
So transition, when I first started going to UCLA, one of the first things I noticed, the classes were a lot bigger. Like at
Mm.
MVC, the classes were like maybe like a math class, like calculus 1 or 2. There was probably maybe like 40 of us or 30 around there. But then when I went to UCLA, when I started my lower division engineering classes, there was probably over 100 of us in those classes. It was pretty big. Um, and it was just kind of like that was kind of a shock to me. And then like I feel like when I was at UCLA too, like since there's so many students, it's kind of hard to like be close to the professor just because there's so many students. I felt like at MVC, I was a lot closer to my professors than at UCLA, just because I mean there's a lot of students, and then like you know the teacher kind of, and then there's also the teacher assistants too, the TAs, which is basically kind of like MVC's like SI supplemental instructors, and so I felt like sometimes the teacher like it doesn't do all the work for like helping out the students. There's also like the TAs too, and I felt like sometimes like the TAs were kind of like I was closer to the TAs than the professor. And then honestly, like it was another thing that I felt was kind of like nice when I transferred to UCLA. There were a lot of people that were transfer students just like me. So like they had kind of gone through the same, more or less the same kind of like schooling that I did because they started at a junior college. Um, and that was kind of nice, like seeing what kind of like having similar experiences to other people. And I think that and then for the classes, like honestly, like if you learn your stuff well at community college, then I mean you'll do fine once you transfer over. It does get harder, more competitive, but it's definitely doable, if that makes sense. It's definitely doable. It's just more of you just have to like really like focus on the material and then just kind of seek out help when you need help, because some of those classes do get very difficult. But there is a lot of help at just like MVC. There's a lot of help at UCLA as well, and definitely like use those resources so you can like feel welcome and like don't feel lost in your classes, so that you don't get behind and things like that. So I think overall the transfer experience has been pretty good to me in my experience.
Yeah, that's great. So you said one of the big reasons you chose UCLA was the mariachi club that they had there. So were you
Yes.
a part of that at UCLA?
Yes, I was, and I actually still am to this day.
Awesome. Because
Yeah.
you're a grad student at UCLA.
Yes, I am a grad student, and this is my last quarter at UCLA right now. So I'll be graduating with my master's degree in aerospace engineering this upcoming June as well.
Congratulations. That's so
Thank,
exciting.
thank
So are
you.
you part of any other extracurriculars or clubs at UCLA?
Yes, I was a part of one other one. It's called SHIP, Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. And basically that club, or Solis, yes. Yes, Solis. Because at UCLA, it's called Solis, Society of Latino Engineer and Scientists, but it's basically a part of SHIP, which is kind of like how do you say, like a universal kind of like in the US,
Yeah,
like
it's the
there's
big
different
organization.
there's a big organization, yes. But yes, it is called Solis. Thank you, Joel, for correcting me. That club, they help engineering students like myself like network with professionals in industry. They also have like opportunities for like people for the students to do like community service, like go tutor like STEM classes like math and science and things like that. So that was the other club I was a part of. So
That's
which so
awesome.
yeah, thank you.
So I think that transitions well into the next question about your undergrad, which was, did you participate in any internships or research?
Yes, I did a lot of yes, I did do a couple internships. Even when I was at MVC, I was able to get a couple internships. My first two internships were at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. It's actually it's in the Bay Area. It's east of Oakland. It's a it's a facility where they do like research on like nuclear energy, and I was actually there for 2 summers. And I also and then the summer before I like the year before I graduated from UCLA, I had an internship at General Atomics, and it was kind of in the same vein, like nuclear energy. That's what they did there, and that was in San Diego.
Oh,
Those
very cool.
Yeah, so those are those are the internships I did before, and it's funny because they're not aerospace related. Those are more. It was more like Department of Energy, nuclear energy kind of research was the internships I had.
But it doesn't necessarily have to be the aerospace, right? You're just gaining those experiences, networking, doing all those different things.
Yes, that's correct. Honestly, like if you can get some kind of experience through an internship, that definitely helps a lot when you're like, looking for a job.
Yeah, so that easily transitions to our next question, which was, what did the job search look like for you when you graduated from UCLA?
Well, it was when I was doing the job search, I actually started uh, like a year before I graduated.
Mhm.
A lot of the companies I was interested in were like they they look like they start looking well in advance.
Mhm.
And just because it's like really competitive, so I went to a couple national conferences So I went to the SHIP National Conference, which is basically like an engineering conference. And then I also went to another one. It's called Great Minds in STEM. I did it was another engineering conference there as well. And they basically like you network with engineering professionals and they have a career fair at those conferences as well. And so I went to a lot of those conferences and I had refined my resume by that point. Because when your resume doesn't have the things that the recruiters or the managers aren't looking for, then they're probably not even gonna look at it. And so I kind of had my resume already refined. And when I went to the conferences, it was just a matter of like, now they would contact me so they can schedule interviews. And so when I went to the Great Minds in STEM conference, I had a couple interviews. I had two interviews with Lockheed Martin, and I had another interview with Northrop Grumman. And after all those interviews, I ended up accepting an offer from Lockheed Martin, which was my first job out of college. So I had got that job offer like months way before I graduated. It was like eight months before I graduated when I had the job offer.
Man, what a dream. So you got to just cruise through your last semester, not having to worry about applying for jobs.
Yes, that's correct.
I say cruise, um, colloquially. Obviously, you were working very hard in all your upper division classes. So,
Yes.
what do you think best prepared you for this process? And maybe if you don't mind sharing a little bit about what you needed to refine about your resume, what were the recruiters looking for that your resume was originally missing?
For the resume, there's two things. One, they wanted to see a lot more of like technical things, like technical like projects, like engineering projects that I have done. Because like I had put like I do community service and things like that. I do mariachi, but like in the end, I mean like those things look nice, but I mean that's not really what they're looking for. So I had to put engineering like projects and like a set of skills that I knew, like if you know how to like code in certain languages, or if you know how to use like software like AutoCAD, or if you know how to use or code in other languages, like I said. And the second thing is when you do these kind of projects, they also want to see that you have experience working in teams as well. Yes, Joel put MATLAB. Yes, MATLAB would be one of the coding languages that you would put on there. So it could be like MATLAB, C++, Java, any of those things. Those things would be pretty helpful. And then the second thing that my resume was missing was they want to see that you have experience working in teams, because when you work in industry, like that's one thing I didn't really think about until I started working, was like how heavily important it is for you to like get along with everyone. So that's like working in teams and things like that. And so they want to see that you have some kind of experience working in teams, because it's very important when you work in industry, because you're basically going to work in teams and you have to like get along with people and things like that, and like resolve conflicts if there's conflicts and things like that.
So all those group projects that everyone's suffering through, they're useful then.
Yes, they're very useful.
That's great to hear. And what about the interview process? Was that sometimes you'll hear people talking about industry interviews lasting like all day long, where they're meeting with lots of different teams. Was that similar to your experience, or was yours different?
Well, my interviews, I think the longest interview I've had is only like an hour. I don't think I've had an interview longer than an hour. But like usually in the interview, at least for me, it's more like I haven't really had any technical interviews where they ask you like like technical questions about what the job will entail. I've had more interviews of they're called behavioral interviews, where basically they kind of just ask you questions to see they just kind of ask you questions about like how well you handle situations, how you resolve conflicts, how well you work with teams, how you manage your time, managing multiple different kind of projects, things like that. Those are the kind of interviews that I've had. And usually they're no longer than an hour. Usually they last about 30 to like 45 minutes, and it's usually like with one person, one to like three people usually is when I do the interviews. That was kind of my experience. And to help me prepare for the interviews, honestly, it's just practice. Like, you know, you can even if you know a friend or something that can like kind of like practice through like some common questions that you could get asked in an interview. I think honestly, just practicing it back and forth, like knowing more or less what to say, so you don't like stumble and like there's like no long like periods of silence and things like that. I think that's probably the best advice I can give for interviews is just kind of like practice like actually doing an interview, because when you actually do an interview, like I there have been some times where like I do get a little nervous, and like it's like then it's normal, but like you just kind of have to prepare for it. It's probably the best advice I can give for interviews.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great advice. And it's great to hear that you did have more like a standard interview process. So it wasn't, anything too wild or out there, but you did have to know all those standard questions. So thank you for sharing that. So
Mhm.
let's talk a little bit about your time working as an aerospace engineer now, and what was it like at Lockheed Martin, and what were you working on?
So over at Lockheed Martin, I was flying qualities engineer. I was there for about 2.5 years, and I worked on the F-35. I worked on the aircraft, the F-35, Lockheed Martin's F-35, and I worked on flight tests. And so basically, what that is like whenever the airplane gets new like equipment on the aircraft, then we basically test it. And as a flying qualities engineer, our main task was to guide the test pilot and making sure that when he does the maneuvers for the test, that the air basically that the aircraft was going to maintain a stable state, and it's going to be safe for the pilot to do those maneuvers. Was the job at Lockheed Martin, and I was there for 2.5 years.
So this was good in the middle of COVID, right? So how was that?
Yeah, so when I started my job there, it was before COVID. I was in person for a couple months, and then when COVID hit, they told us, okay, everyone has to go home. Here's a laptop. We're gonna try working from home, and it was just really, I mean, scary times at first, but it was confusing. But it was kind of hard adjusting to working from home because I was just used to talking to people like around me and things like that, being in the office, asking questions. But now everything went to emails and phone calls and instant messages. It was different, but at some point, I think we all got used to working from home, and I kind of ended up liking it a bit more than actually going into the office, just because you save on commute time. That was just my main thing. And then like when I work remote too, like I mean, you don't have to worry about like you could be like dressed in your pajamas and things like that, because like you don't have like a camera like on with you or anything like that. Even when you're in the meetings, like it's just like a phone call. But I mean, as long as you do the work, I mean that's honestly the most important thing they care about at the job. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I think a lot of people got used to like working from home, and some people like it, some people don't like it. But I think overall, I mean, we made it work during COVID, and then once kind of the restrictions started to get lifted, then they started like having some people stay on base, and then some people could still work from home and things like that whenever they can work from home.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Um, so that's really interesting. So you were working with the F-35 plane, working with these test pilots. What kind of systems were you using while you were conducting these test flights with the test pilots?
What do you mean by systems?
Like, were you using any kind of special programs? Does Lockheed Martin have their own special system software that they utilize?
Oh, okay. So at my job, okay, so let me kind of explain first. Like, it's at my job when we do the flight test, like we're in a room. It's called the control room, and like it's like think of NASA, but like where like there it's like all those people in the computer, and they have like those headsets, and they're talking to the astronauts, and we're basically the same people, but we're talking to a test pilot in a fighter jet, and on the computer screens, it's a program. It's called IADS. It's not owned by Lockheed Martin. It's like a tech company. They make it. I think it's called Symbionics. And basically, what that program does is that it like basically receives like all the data that the aircraft is sending out, and then we can see it on the computer. So we see like how high the airplane is flying, like what attitude it's at, how fast it's going, and like we can see like at what like angles it's like banked at. So like if it's like going like this, or if it's like up and down, or like yacht and things like that. Like we can see all of that on our computer screens. Was kind of how it worked at our job, and we had to basically monitor. They had a bunch of people in the room to monitor certain things, just so that the pilot was doing the test correctly, efficiently, and safely as well.
Wow, so they're really depending on you to make sure you're doing this, so requires a lot of attention to detail, it sounds like.
Yes, that's correct, and a lot of teamwork as well, because like you'll have one person looking at one thing, and then the lead will be like, "Hey, like, can you like watch this one other thing, because I'm focused on this other thing, so I may not have time to look at the other thing." So then, like, it's just kind of like the team coordination is pretty important there as well.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And how often would they conduct test flights?
Usually it was like once, well, depending on how much work there was, but usually it was about once or twice a week it would happen, was when we did the test flights. But then there'd be some times where there'd be like no test flights for like 2 weeks or something like that. But like um that happens either because there's probably not like projects are barely coming in, or we're preparing for the next project, as in like we have to write test plans for it, like how are we gonna test the system on the aircraft and things like that. And we also have to write safety plans as well, like how we're gonna mitigate risk, like damaging the aircraft, or like we don't want it to crash either, things like that. So those are kind of the other things that we did at the job.
I see. So outside of the actual test flights and being in the control room with all your other colleagues, sounds like you had a lot of other things on your plate as well.
Yes, that's correct. The test plans, safety plans, and then we also did a lot of like simulations on the. We had
Mhm.
computer software to do simulations to predict how the aircraft would respond to the maneuvers that the pilot was going to do at the actual test flight. So we would do a lot of preparation before we actually did a test flight in real time.
That makes sense. You don't want to just send someone up in a plane if it's going to be dangerous.
Yes, that's correct.
So talk to us a little bit about your transition to Boeing.
So my transition to Boeing, so where I was at Lockheed Martin, the job was kind of like a lot of the work was kind of like dwindling. Like they had like projects coming, but like it was gonna be like years in advance. So I was just like, I want to try something different now. And so I was applying the jobs while I was working at Lockheed Martin, and I ended up landing a job over at the Boeing company over here in El Segundo, California, which is next to LAX, here in Los Angeles. And now I'm in the satellite division. And so here at the Boeing company, I am a space and launch systems engineer. And so like that like space and launch systems engineer is like an umbrella for like many kind of different jobs. Um, and what I got hired to do is guidance, navigation, and controls engineer. And basically, what that is that you basically write code for the spacecraft, the satellites, so that it'll help so like once they launch the satellite into space, the code is supposed to help the satellite stay in its orbit and like pointing at the right direction it's supposed to be pointing, and things like that. So that's what I'm doing right now.
Wow, that sounds really important. I mean, lots of satellites are going up every day, right?
Yes.
So, tell us a little bit about what a day in your life looks like right now.
So a day in my life, right now at the Boeing company, I'm in a hybrid schedule. So half of the time I work on site, and then half of the time I work from home. But that's how the schedule is set up for right now. But to be honest, I'm most of the time I'm home just because like you can do the job from home, and like there's not a lot of people on site right now. A lot of people just kind of stay home. But usually like there's like it's different every day. So like when I wake up and I log in and things like that. Sometimes I'll have meetings in the morning or something like that um to like kind of talk about like status update between the teams, and then sometimes I have to go to other meetings to see like what like if we have issues that we're trying to resolve and things like that, we have to like attend meetings to kind of like get together and talk about like, hey, like why is this not working, and then we have someone else, and then we have other people collaborating to like fix the issues and things like that. And when I'm not in meetings, I'm basically doing work on the computer. Like it's mostly coding. Right now, what we're doing is we're testing a lot of software that's going to go onto the satellites, and it's more of just kind of like I said, it's just coding, and we're like testing software to make sure that the software works before we actually put it on the spacecraft is what we're doing right now. So if I'm not in meetings, then I'm doing that, and I also have to write test plans as well. In this job, I have to write test plans, and what else? Test plans, and then I also have to sell off requirements. So like usually the satellites will have like a customer like that wants the satellite to be built, and they have like a list of requirements. And for the requirements, like you have to make sure that whatever like you're coding, what you're testing and things like that meets the requirements as well. And so that's more or less my job right now here at the Boeing company.
Wow, that's so interesting. What kind of languages are you programming or coding in right now?
So the only one I'm using right now, it's TCL. It's called, they call it Tickle, and it's very similar to Python. But it's like it's and it kind of like if you know like some basics of coding, like me, like I knew a little bit of Python, but I'm more familiar with MATLAB, just because I use it a lot in school. If you know like the basics of MATLAB, like or like any kind of coding languages, like you know like for loops, while loops, and things like that, this coding language is pretty easy to learn. It's more of just like you like send commands to the spacecraft, and like you basically test it to make sure that it the spacecraft receives the commands, and then and it also sends out a signal like basically saying like, hey, I received the command, and like I'm gonna do a bunch of things here and there, like turn on these thrusters or turn on these like attitude controlling like motors and things like that, so that I can keep my satellite in orbit. um but that's mostly all I use right now. It's called Tickle. It's very similar to Python. Is what I'm using right now. But if you, like I said, if you know the basics of coding, then it's pretty easy to learn, I would say, in my opinion. It's, yeah.
But you weren't using this before you started at the Boeing company.
Yes, correct. I had to learn it when I got here. I had to learn how to use it.
But that's great. I think you're talking about you had like the basics down from a couple of various different languages, and you're able to use those basics to learn this new language. And how do you feel about using it now? Pretty comfortable?
I feel a lot more comfortable using it. There's still like things I don't know how to do here and there, but like I think for the most part, like to do the job, I'm comfortable in the coding language right now.
That's great to know. I think a lot of people are worried about having to know like a specific language, but I think it's good information that you don't have to be like 100% in one particular one.
Yeah, and
So,
then and if I could just add something to that, a lot of like when you start a job, like y- there's gonna be a lot of on the job training. So like, don't worry about too much about like if you don't know how to do certain things here and there. Like a lot of stuff you will learn at the job. That was the same at my last job at Lockheed Martin. I mean, I had to, a lot of stuff you learn on the job, and you don't have to know everything. They're not expecting you to know everything, but like they are expecting you to have a willingness to learn. Is basically is what they're looking for, and if you're willing to learn, then and you learn the stuff effectively and efficiently and things like that, then you'll be a good asset to the company.
That's great. I love that willingness to learn. I'll make sure to share that.
Mhm.
So you're getting your master's, you're getting ready to graduate. What kind of plans are you looking forward to in the future?
Well, with my master's, once I'm done with my master's, I'm hoping, um, I'm like I'm kind of like with school, like I've done a lot of schooling, so definitely take a small break from school for sure. But maybe along the way, maybe like if I want to learn new skills, then I wouldn't mind doing like certificate kind of programs, so I can just get like more skills that might be helpful to me in industry, because I definitely would like to stay in industry. I've about to hit 3 years in industry overall, aerospace industry, and so far I'm liking it a lot. And then I mean, once I graduate, then hopefully in the future, I'm hoping to start a family in a couple years, but yeah, that's probably in the far future. I barely have a girlfriend right now, but but like that's something I'd like to have as a family in the future is probably the thing I can think of right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. And are you thinking of staying with the Boeing company for now? You're enjoying your role as your space and launch systems engineer?
So far, yes, I'm enjoying my role. I'm definitely gonna stay at the Boeing company. At least I would say for a couple years, just because they are paying for my master's degree. So once and since they're paying for my master's degree, I have to stay with them at least 2 years, um, to be so that I don't have to like pay it back if I leave or something like that. That's kind of what happened to me when I left Lockheed Martin. I had to pay back a year's worth of school, but the Boeing company was willing to cover that cost if I made the jump with them, and that's part of another reason why I made the jump. They basically paid the school that I had to pay back Lockheed Martin, and they're paying the rest of my school as well right now for my master's degree.
That's a really great tip. So you were able to negotiate as part of your contract. I'm guessing that they would, or maybe they offered it to you as part of your contract to pay for your master's degree.
Yes, that's correct.
So is that initially why you decided to pursue your master's?
Um, yes, part of the reason I wanted to do a master's degree was because when I was at Lockheed Martin, they would pay for the school. So like, and I know like it gets very expensive, so they would pay for my school. So I was like, you know what, why not? I'm gonna do a master's degree, and I think it'd be very beneficial to me as well. So I mean, that is the main reason, was because they were gonna fund my schooling. So that's why I went back to do my master's degree.
That's great. It's definitely going to build your resume and make you very desirable candidate in the industry moving forward.
Yes.
S- So, what advice do you have for students who are interested in pursuing engineering or maybe aerospace engineering particularly?
Well, there's a lot of things. I think, well, yes, there's a lot of things, but I think one of the main things is, if it's something you really want to do, one of the main things I would say is, don't give up on your dreams. There have been many instances in my schooling career where I was one where I basically wanted to give up because like school, like I didn't have a lot of money, and it was just school was pretty hard to it and things like that. But I mean, it's just kind of like just like kind of pushing yourself forward, and then like it's okay, like like if things don't go as planned, as don't go the way that you planned, but one thing is, I would say, is that if you can learn from those like situations, those like failure kind of situations, I think that's something that would really benefit you guys. And for getting in the aerospace industry, obviously, like I know like you have to have decent grades and things like that, But what I would also prioritize, something that school doesn't really teach you, is networking. So definitely like how I mentioned, I went to those engineering conferences. Um, for those engineering conferences, like that's kind of how I started to network with engineers in engineers in industry. Just kind of like getting out of my comfort zone, like trying to like, because like I was like a very shy person, and like I like, you have to like approach the professionals and like start speaking to them, and then that conversation might even lead to an interview, or and then after the interview, potentially a job as well. So I would say networking is another big thing as well. And then Joel asked, any internship opportunities for community college students? Um, when I did the nuclear energy stuff, there is like, um, there, you can apply to that as a community college, if you're interested in doing that. I can type the program that I was in. It's called Sully. I don't remember what it stands for exactly. I think it's Summer Undergraduate Laboratory Internships. I think that's what it is. Summer Undergraduate Laboratory Internships. I basically did that for the three internships that I had. That's basically how I got in. It's called Sully. You can look it up online. They take community college students, so I would definitely look into that if you're interested in getting any kind of engineering internship. Because I think internships definitely help out when trying to get a job and things like that. So that would be probably another advice as well. Is if I would at least, I would try to go try to apply to like internships, and like, so you can actually get the practical experience that school doesn't necessarily give you, if that makes sense. So I think those are the main tips I had. So
Yeah, thank you. I think that's really important. It sounds like the networking that you did at the conferences that you attended really is what helped you get your career started.
yes.
So I know sometimes these conferences can be really expensive. So how did you navigate that?
So like I mentioned before, I was part of SOLAS, Society of Latino Engineers and Scientists, and they would help sponsor students to
Mm.
attend these conferences. Like they would help with like lounging and the airfare and things like that. The only thing you had to pay for was the conference itself, and that was usually about like $200 to 250. But honestly, like I think it's like it definitely, to me, it's worth it, to just kind of get the networking, to get the networking aspect, and because they have those career fairs at school as well. Like when I was at UCLA, they had those career fairs, but like, but like you're like, there was like so many students and things like that, and like that was like free and things like that. Like it was a lot. I felt like it was a lot more competitive, if that makes sense. And so and I felt like, and I felt like, and then like there was like less people that can go to, because the space was kind of limited as well. Whereas if you go to these conferences, there was a lot bigger spaces for more companies to have booths and things like that. um but I mean, honestly, like, and even if you can't go to those conferences, honestly, just like like if you can like go to like those like events at school, like just to like kind of get like a, just to kind of like network with um, professionals. I think that honestly that'd be really helpful to getting your career started.
Yeah, absolutely. Just having a connection at another company can help broaden your opportunities. So thank you for
Yes.
sharing that. That's really important to use your resources. So it sounds like you were using Solus to get get yourself ahead, and the $250 is worth it because you got yourself a job. So that's great.
Yes.
So I want to open it up to see if anybody else has any questions, and I do have a couple questions that were submitted. So Joel, Professor Basuna, if you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself or drop another question in the chat.
Was really nice hearing from you, and it's great to know that you are doing well, and we're very proud of you. I just wanted to say that we're very proud of you. Um, we have, unfortunately, not a big group of students that come back and tell us their story. I mean, we don't have that many students in the STEM um, following this path. Unfortunately, we wish we'll see more students, but I think stories like yours should be shared because people get to see that it's possible. It just requires a lot of work, and that is definitely no one can say that it's not going to be a difficult road. But then it's rewarding, right? And you get to do what you like and what you loved. Right from when I met you, you told me you're going to be an aerospace engineer, and I admire you. You stuck to your dream and you made it happen. But you made it happen. It's the success that belongs to you. We along the way, we're just there to help you at that point and or that stage in your life. The same with the teachers you had at the university and so on. But the rest is yours. And I want to emphasize that because a lot of students think that the success somehow is based on the grade they get from the teacher. They forget that you have to earn the grade. And that's I think the main thing, right? You got to earn it and you have to learn it for you, not for anybody else. And not for a grade, I believe. I don't know if you agree with me. You have to learn it for you so you know it. And later on, when you go to a job like that, like you said, it's the potential. They hire you for the potential you have,
Yes, correct.
potential for learning, and of course, the desire of learning and stuff, but also potential for learning. They want to know they can work with you. That's why they focus their interviews a lot on what kind of person you are, how it's your work etiquette, and all that stuff. So they choose you based on that. Of course, for the rest, they look at your degree, they look at your transcripts, they know you went through some classes, they believe that the school got you and you got through those classes based on merit, and so they hire you for that. They were not technical, like from what I heard from you, the questions were not very technical. They were not like, oh, do this project for us, let's see if you can do it or something like that. And so it's so when you learn, and that's what I think every student should be thinking, when you learn for the long run. You learn so you understand, and later on, and it might not be directly applied, like you said, things
Yes.
from school did not go directly into the workforce. You learn a lot of things there, but all the effort you put in before just comes in to get together with everything. So like I said, we're very proud of you. I'm sorry Miss Johnson didn't make it. I'm sure something has come up, but I just want to say that thank you for coming back and sharing your experience with us.
Oh yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Tuna. Thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it a lot. It's really nice seeing you again. I haven't seen you in years, but
Yeah, you
it's
look
really
unchanged, and I look so much older now. Time is not. It's not really that linear. At some point, it's just acting differently on different people. But anyway, good to see you, and I hope
thank
to see you again soon. And good luck with everything.
thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, take care.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you, Andres. And Joel, I see you're saying that you've been to the SHIP conventions, but a lot don't hire community college students as interns. And that might be true. I think what I would recommend to you, because I have been working with some students on looking for internships, is there's a great website called pathways2science.org, which I could put in the chat for you. And you can actually filter the internships listed there, looking for ones that are specifically looking for community college students. And that might be something you want to look into. I think, are you based primarily at MVC or RCC?
RCC.
Okay, so I would definitely also try stopping by the STEM Center there at RCC. Tim there is a great resource. He has a lot of information about various resources that they have for community college students. And also Dr. Ginger White. She also works with students there at RCC.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, because I have also experiences with Norco STEM Center already, so I'm most likely gonna switch campuses very soon. Because I live closer. I live equal distance away from both schools.
I
Just
see.
the opportunities for me to do stuff right now for the next year, because I plan to transfer next fall for next 2023. So I just want to make the most while I apply to transfer. Most likely to, because I went to a UC already and I didn't do so well there. So I'm just wanting to go to a CSU or an out-of-state school.
Yeah, I totally understand. And I think Norco has Patricia Gill over at her STEM Center. She works with a lot of students, helping them with internships. But I'll send you an email and I'll try to hook you up with some of the resources I have. But one other question, I hope you don't mind answering, Andres, is one student had asked, how do you manage your time? Like, what kind of tips do you have for time management or managing your work, your classes, all of that?
I like using, I like putting things on my calendar. So like I have a Google calendar of like things that I'm gonna do. But usually like for schoolwork and things like that, like usually after work, like I'll try to like just kind of like, you know, watch my lectures and things like that. Just any time that I have free after work, I would try to just kind of like do my schoolwork. It's just more of a focus kind of thing for me, like because like you can get easily distracted with other things, you know, and it's just more of like being proactive about your schoolwork, doing your homework, and then watching the lectures and things like that. And then some weekends when I do have free too, I mean, I would do a lot of schoolwork during that time as well. But like I mentioned before, I like using the Google calendars, putting stuff on my schedule. Like when I have free gaps of free time and things like that, it's kind of like when I start to do like my schoolwork, and then definitely getting plenty of sleep and things like that, and then drinking water, eating well, things like that are also very important, so that you can be cognizant of like managing your time, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. Self-care is really important.
Yeah,
Can't
self-care.
function well if you're not well rested or taken care of.
Yes.
Great. Any other questions that we have for Andres? Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. And I know Andres is active on LinkedIn. If you're interested in connecting with him, I'm sure he'd be willing to connect with you. As you heard, networking is really important. So try to start building that network. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me as well. And then yes, for any students that are interested in connecting with me on LinkedIn, then you just send me a request and I'll connect with you. And then if you have any other questions, you guys can message me through LinkedIn as well. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that I can hopefully help out with for you guys.
Thank you. Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.